welcome to the MI Hunting Podcast. Thank you for tuning in as always. So this episode, we're going to dive into a few different topics in regards to different hunting and fishing opportunities for during the winter time. Again, for here in Michigan and across most of the Midwest, weather has been quite unusual, and especially if you're into winter sports, this has definitely been a bit of a downer year. But there's still plenty of opportunities, plenty of things to do, and we're going to get into that on this episode. But before we do, as always, if you enjoy this episode, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, and make sure you head on over to mihuntingpodcast.com to check out all the content available, as well as stop over at the shop, pick yourself up some logo wear and some of the custom clothing that is available. And if you enjoy this podcast and want to be involved and support more directly, head on over to the Join Us button, become a member. Your membership supports this show directly, as well as grant you special access to exclusive members only content and discounts on all items sold within the store for the life of your membership. And with that, let's get into the topics at hand. So to start this episode out, I do want to highlight some of the key events that are coming up this month as well as into next month. So the first one I've got on my radar is the Northwest Michigan NDA's branch Banquet. This is going to be held on February 24th at 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Haggerty Center in Traverse City. A single ticket is $60. Couples ticket is $100. Youth 14 and under is $25, and all tickets include dinner and NDA basic membership. If you want to reserve a table, that's a table of 8, that's $1,000, and again, that's memberships for all tickets involved. Again, the NDA is the biggest deer or nonprofit. They do a ton of research, they do a ton of articles, and they have a lot of outreach programs. Again, this is just going to be another a chance to support that group, have dinner, have a good time, and learn what's been going on with the organization. Next one I want to highlight is the Trekin Outdoors 2024 Banquet. This one is going to be held in March, so it's March 16th at 4 p.m. at the Eagle Park Event Center. Again, Trekin Outdoors, they're a friend of the show, and they're a great group of guys, and they're doing a lot of great work in regards to hunting for Michigan and kind of showcasing that hunts across the country can be done pretty much by anyone, really. So they do a great job, a great production, and they're just basically highlighting some things that they've done, and basically working with some of their partners and sponsors to basically to provide a banquet for all of their viewers and supporters. So for that, a single ticket is $75, a couples ticket is $125, and if you still want to sponsor a table, that is again $1,000. It's 8 tickets. I know that they are running out of the sponsored tables slots. So if you are interested in attending that, again, better get your tickets in now before they run out. Other March events are the Whitetails Unlimited Deer Camp Tour. This is one that I've actually been fortunate to be able to sponsor a table for. So I'll be in attendance with a group of friends of mine and family. And that one, again, is held in Traverse City at the Haggerty Center on March 13th, starting at 5 p.m. And the ticket deadline for this event is February 28th, and they're $45 a ticket. And lastly, want to highlight the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation banquets. They've got quite a few of them going on, across the state and across the country. Again, they do a significant amount of work, as you would expect, on the elk front. Very important, game species within our state of Michigan as well as across the country. So again, supporting these guys by, buying a ticket to one of their banquets. And again, they highlight a lot of what's been done over the course of the year and what things are up and coming that you may want to know about. So in all these events, I am going to I'm going to add their links to the show description. So if you want to check out or purchase a ticket to any of these events that I've highlighted, head down to the comment section, follow the link to purchase a ticket for any of those events. All right, and I do want to highlight next a couple of the current seasons open here for Michigan. Again, it's small game season, so cottontail rabbit, snowshoe hare, squirrel. Coyote, again, is year-round, and this is a good time for coyote hunting. And, of course, you got possum, porcupine, weasel, skunk, ground squirrel, woodchuck, Russian boar, feral pigeon, and starlings, and the house sparrow. For fishing seasons, again, largemouth and smallmouth is catch and release. Muskie is still open through March 15th for possession season. Lake creeks and inland waters in St. Mary's River. Northern pike, possession season. The Lower Peninsula is still open until March 15th as well. Upper Peninsula, Great Lakes, inland waters, and St. Mary's River are open until March 15th. Salmon and trout are open for the entire year. Again, check the regulation on which streams and lakes in your area are open. And then, of course, you got channel catfish, flathead catfish, cisco, whitefish, round whitefish, smelt, sunfish, white bass, and yellow perch, and all other game fish species. And speaking of fishing, this is going to be the nice big topic here is, the fishing opportunities for this winter. Now, for ice fishing, we're kind of seeing the ice fishing blues here of basically the weather has not cooperated for any good ice for any adequate ice fishing. Now, there are some lakes that do have some ice on them. I am still seeing some reports of some individuals going out and braving the conditions and doing some ice fishing. But just from the warm temperatures and the rain that we receive, it just did complete melt off. So we have this poor ice conditions across the state. Here in the Upper Peninsula, there are still some good ice locations, but they're losing it fast. Ryan, who was on the podcast last week, he was up in Marquette visiting, and he noted that there's a lot of areas with open water. So again, there are still some reports of some good ice, but those are fleeting. It looks like we're pretty much going to be kind of a bust for the rest of the season. We certainly could always get a big cool down. I mean, we can get winter storms into April even, and but sustainable temperatures and the weather that we really need for to create good solid ice again, to kind of salvage the ice fishing season, it doesn't appear like we're going to be getting that anytime soon. So the big push, or the big thing I've been focusing on, is fishing on the open water, primarily rivers, steelhead. I grew up listening to my dad and some of his friends talk about the amount of steelhead fishing that they would do during the course of the winter. And I've over the past few years have grown an interest in wanting to start doing that. I've never really river fished. I've always just kind of stuck to, the lakes really. And never really focused on steelhead or salmon or anything like that. So over the past couple of years, I've been growing interest in that type of fishing. So starting kind of basically last year, I went out a couple times just trying to kind of figure it out. I got myself a rod and, started, watching YouTube videos and reading articles about different, the gear needed, and just kind of doing this kind of, learning as I go type of deal of trying to figure out how to fish the rivers. So this year, again, I've been diving into that more, especially seeing how, basically I've only been able to go out really once ice fishing, and that was before we had the big warm up. So, still wanting to have some fishing opportunities. I've been heading out to some of the local rivers and streams to, try my hand at it. So really I've been focusing on, fishing with a float setup. So basically, the bobber setup and, going that route. I know there's really two main ways to go about it during fishing the rivers. Really, you have the float system where you're using some form of bobber or float The other one is drift fishing, where you don't have any type of float or anything like that, and you're really just working the bottom. I basically decided to go for the float system, basically just kind of knowing that I don't have really the skill or the confidence to really be able to work the line without having that visual aid of the float and being able to really read the bottom just yet, and be able to really have the feel for being able to feel the bottom with that type of fishing, and with dealing with the currents and whatnot. So basically what I've been running is kind of your generic steelhead type fishing rod. I've tried kind of all the different different riggings or bait that you can use. I tried running a jig a little bit. I heard that was basically in my reading, I learned that was kind of the easiest type of lure to use. Essentially, requires kind of the least amount of technique, and I kind of found that to be the case. Basically it floats right, or you use that right underneath, at the end of the line. It's weighted jig to where it basically stays down below the float like it's supposed to, and you can really feel the bottom when that jig encounters it, so you can really get a good judge of where the bottom is and where you need to set that float to put that jig within the strike zone. Other thing I did is try using the bead a little bit. Again, a little bit lighter weight than the jig system, but again, the same kind of basic concept, that bead's just going to kind of float and bounce around on the bottom, with the float running the rest of the way up. And then the last one that I've really been focusing on is trying to run a small spawn bag. Basically that's kind of straightforward bait to use in regards to having some type of really like a live bait or a true bait for those steelhead. To my understanding is that they're really going to key on that spawn and those eggs. Again, that's kind of the reason why spawn and the beads really work this time of year. So I've hit a couple different rivers and streams, and I've had basically no luck at it so far. The first river I went to, I basically did not have any had zero luck at all. And that river was actually shallow enough and clear enough where a lot of times you could just tell that there were no fish in those holes. At least a couple weeks ago when I went, that was the case. Another river that I know that has been more prominent for steelhead fishing, there has been several other fishermen out on the lake or on the river, and I've seen one have some success catching one or two fish. For the rest of us, it's been very hard going. Again, I don't know if it's necessarily that the fishing is really slow right now, or if it's just my current level of skill that I haven't been able to hook into any fish. I'm going to continue to keep going out and keep trying that. Basically just going out at least once a week to try my hand at kind of learn more to better technique, and to hopefully be able to catch a fish or two. So again, with the the lack of ice fishing, if you still want to go out as a fishing and do some fishing, this is a good avenue to try, especially if you haven't really done it before, or if you just want to get out and still try to get some fish to be able to cook up some fish over this winter. And then for hunting opportunities, again, as I covered for the open season still, for here in Michigan is a lot of small game hunting, as well as doing some predator hunting, primarily the coyote hunting. This is probably one of my favorite times to do any type of, or try doing coyote hunting. Of course, you can hunt coyotes year round for the state, but I usually like to try to wait until I know that they're furred out, they have their winter fur coats. So if I do end up harvesting a coyote, it's something that I can have a nice clean pelt or a pretty pelt to be able to do something with, either keep it for my own personal collection, or to have it tanned out and do something in that regard with it. This time of year, up until late or early to late spring, is a good time to go after those coyotes. There are numerous predator across the landscape, and again, they put a big damper on, or they put a big dent into the spring turkey and fawns. Basically they're going after a lot of those hens when they're trying to nest. That will be coming up here in another basically, 2 to 3 months now, they're going to be very susceptible to any type of those predators. And then, of course, 4 to 5 months out, we've got fawns that will be hitting the ground. And cows are very good at being able to, scoop up those fawns before they have a chance to, make it throughout the summer. So it's never a bad idea to try to cut down on some of those predators. That way, again, for the turkeys who actually are having a pretty hard time, in the state as well as across the country, and at being able to maintain their numbers. Just giving them that little bit of extra help by cutting down on the predation. And again, same thing for anyone who's a deer hunter. We are very protective of protecting our fawns in the springtime. We want to see as many of those fawns at least grow up and make it through their release for their first year. For me personally, I haven't taken the time yet to go out, but it is something I really need to do. Last time I was really down at the farm when we still had a little bit of snow left, there was definitely some significant coyote sign that they were, definitely on the landscape quite frequently, as well as it appears as though they were really kind of pushing the deer around and really pressuring them. A lot of times we were seeing a lot of deer tracks mixed in with some fresh coyote tracks. So it looks like those coyotes are moving those deer around, pushing them around, and potentially trying to prey on them. This time of year, it's the coyote rut or their breeding season. So if you are going out and hunting them, a lot of times is that a lot of the howls and other coyote vocal calls are gonna be more, or you're gonna be more successful utilizing those calls this time of year than pretty much any other time of the year. So over the next couple weeks, I plan on going down to the farm at least 2 or 3 times and trying my hand down doing some evening and early morning hunts, just trying to hopefully pull a couple of coyotes off the property. Again, the springtime, that's when it's more key to be able to cut down on those numbers of those predators to help those turkey populations out and to help the fawns when they do start dropping. Again, basically the big setup is position your call to where an area where you think they'll come in, usually looking at kind of like what I'm going to be looking at is basically kind of cornering myself in a corner of both the bottom field and the top field. Again, watching that wind direction, because more often than not, those cows are going to circle around downwind to confirm, what they're hearing and try to get, again, a better fix on what's out field, usually around where that call is. Nice thing too about doing coyote hunting is that a lot of times, if you're out there for 20, 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, and nothing comes in and you're not getting a good response, you can basically pack it up and try a different set somewhere else. It's kind of one of those things where they're either going to come in if they're in the area or they're just not. So you're not going to be spending extended amount of time in a certain set. Basically if they're not coming in that 20-30 minute time frame, you can pack it up, find another place, or try a different setup, and basically just kind of move on from there. The other one that I've yet to go out this year for is doing small game or squirrel hunt. Squirrel hunt is enjoyable for me in regards that you can go out, spend time out in the outdoors, you can harvest some meat, but it's kind of like a bit of a low pressure type hunt. You're not, it seems like for deer hunting, put a lot more pressure on, really planning out the location, the hunt, the weather conditions, everything like that. Squirrel hunt, it just kind of seems to have just a little bit different mindset of just, you're just going out there, and if you find a few squirrels, you get a few shots at them. If you miss them, oh well, you get another shot another time. Again, more of a less stressful, more enjoyable type of hunt where you're just kind of wandering out in the woods and just trying to, harvest some squirrels, really. And this year I plan on taking my daughter out. My oldest daughter, again, has taken an interest in hunting. Again, super proud of her for harvesting her first deer, but she does want to be able to go out and do some more shooting, get some more target practice in. So I figured, why not take her out squirrel hunting to get her some more trigger time and maybe even get her comfortable with taking shots in some, awkward positions where you have some weird angles. So the plan will be to take her out with the old 22 mag and, again, give her some shot opportunities to some squirrels. She's definitely one that's in the mindset of, whether you're hunting or fishing, like you are going out and doing those activities in the pursuit of harvesting food. So she's definitely got the mindset of that, field to fork type of mindset of, we eat what we harvest type of deal. So again, a good introduction to hunting for some younger generations. Another way to put some wild game on the table. And one of my favorite things, which sometimes gets me kind of hung up a little bit, is you can go out and take advantage of doing some scouting while you're out hunting. Sometimes I get distracted and start focusing too much on the scouting aspect for whitetails again. But again, it gets you out in the woods and gets you going on some basic, potentially some pre-scouting or scouting for the next season. And speaking of winter scouting, we've got the weather right now for, that's going to be very enjoyable and I would say very productive type or time frame for winter scouting. With our lack of snow, it makes it very easy to be able to still see a lot of that fall sign more clearly. Usually you end up having to wait until a lot of that snow melts to be able to see some of those old scrapes, follow some of those older trails. But again, with the lack of snowfall that we've had, within the state, doing some scouting this time of year without that, snow accumulation, you can go out and again, you're going to be able to move a little bit easier throughout the woods, not having to tread through deep snow, and you're going to be able to see a lot of that early sign or a lot of that sign from fall much sooner, as well as any sheds that may have dropped over the past couple months are not buried in deep snow right now. So any fresh sheds are going to be laying right on top of the leaves or whatnot, making them much easier to find. Now, was talking to a buddy of mine just a couple days ago, and he actually is still running cameras, and he showed me a couple of pictures of a buck that is still actually carrying his antlers. So a few bucks are still carrying their antlers, probably for however much longer they'll do that for. But again, if you're out there, the likelihood of being able to find some fresh sheds is pretty good, having them not buried up by snow. The other thing I'm going to point out with this, winter especially, is that we've yet to have, sustainable weeks of, hard winter. So just talking to my dad just last night, that a lot of the deer are going to be in really great shape, potentially for the spring and carrying on through the rest of the summer and into the fall. Again, without having significant snowfall and those significant cold temperatures, those deer are not having to burn through those fat reserves like they would if we had a harder winter. That's going to lead, if you look at those numbers, it's pretty easy to look at and see that these deer are going to be, carrying more weight through into springtime, which when we start having this spring green up, those deer are going to still be in really great shape, start putting weight back on much easier, and not having to make up as much lost ground. The nice thing is for those bucks, again, their antler development is secondary to their health. So if a buck's in bad shape coming out of winter, he's probably not going to develop as nice of antlers, that following season, because he had to put so much nutrition towards, putting the fat reserves back on, building up his weight again. But if he still has a little bit of fat left over from, a not harsh winter, then he's going to be able to put more effort into, or, more resources and nutrients into building up his antlers if he's already, got some fat reserves, still got his body weight. So we were just talking about the fact that, there's a good likelihood that we're going to see some really big, antlered bucks this year if this winter continues the way it has. So that's something that's to look forward to, I guess, with the mild winter that we've had. And again, with the lack of snowfall, it just makes it easier to get out there, and be able to spend some time out in the woods. Again, not having to trudge through heavy, deep snow, warmer temperatures. I mean, we've gotten quite a bit of sunshine the past couple weeks, so it's been very enjoyable going out and spending more time outside doing those scouting trips. During the wintertime too is a great time to start looking at doing habitat work. So the thing I do primarily is, especially again with the lack of snowfall, is taking a look at the condition of my food plot, which I've discussed before. This year my food plots got hammered pretty heavily with browse. So again, but there is still some green out there, but it's very, very low, kind of that lip level type deal. There are some still deer utilizing it, but not as much as, if it was, had been not, browsed down as badly as it has. So taking a look at your food plots. Is there still food available in those food plots? If you had something like any type of grain or, any type of tubers or turnips or anything like that, are there still, adequate food source in those food plots, or are you running the same issue as I am of, overbrowse? Again, that's partially one thing I look at, is making sure that you have something in that food plot that's going to be able to take off with that fresh green up in the springtime. Again, providing a good food source for those deer and other wildlife. As soon as that green up comes in, it's going to be a big draw and help those animals get back a lot of those fat reserves and nutrition that they need coming out of winter. The other thing is looking at your property in regards to any type of layout for potential next food plots for the following season, or any type of timber harvest, or bedding work or anything like that. So really, that's kind of looking at kind of the intel that you've got, again, from hopefully scouting or physical observations in the field of where you need to lay out your tree stands, where you like to put in bedding areas, where you like to do some timber work. Which timber work this time of year, again, while most of the trees are still dormant, even though we've still had some warmer temperatures, and some trees may try pushing some sap through. Again, doing some timber work, cutting down, some undesirable trees to try to open up that canopy to try to allow some more sunlight into those, wooded areas, to allow for, understory to grow in there, thicken up, add more woody browse, get more forbs in there. Again, a lot of it is kind of a twofold, is try to thicken up the woods to try to create potential bedding areas, as well as allow for more woody browse. And again, those forbs, trying to, make sure that, you basically have a year-round food source. So again, in my instance, where the food plot may not have, been able to sustain the browse and be an adequate food source during the winter, by adding additional, woody browse, giving those deer something to be able to, sustain themselves throughout the winter months, even though it's not as desirable as maybe a nice fresh green food plot. Gives them something to hang on to for those winter months. And then working on bedding areas, so whether that's doing hinge cutting, again, dropping some mature trees to provide side cover, to start allowing for additional regeneration. One of my favorite things to do is to drop some popple trees, knowing that those larger, kind of undesirable or low timber value trees, you can put them down. You can give them, those tops will become good woody browse for deer during the winter time. Basically, they take the, giving them the ends of those, stems and branches that have that, more supple and nutrient dense branches. And then also when they start generating, stump shoots or shoots out of the root system, that's going to be a higher stem count, increasing woody browse, as well as thickening up the area, giving more cover. Hopefully be able to, hold more deer by giving them more cover and making them feel more secure on the property. As a basic kind of to wrap this up and to kind of close out on this episode a bit, the general, bad weather for when it comes to typical winter sports. So, if you're one that likes to go out ice fishing or skiing or snowmobiling or stuff like that, it's been just a garbage year for that type of activity. But with that, it does present some opportunities to try some new things and get out and do some activities that you normally wouldn't be doing or may not focus on. So for me, a lot of times I kind of get tunnel vision and focus on unusual winter months. It would be ice fishing, and it would be ice fish, and then maybe do some scouting, and I probably wouldn't be fishing the rivers at all if it hadn't been for the poor ice conditions. So that's something that again, get kind of stuck on doing the stuff that I kind of know and typically would enjoy. Again, not letting this poor weather damper my spirits at all. Just looking at the conditions that we have available and trying to make the best of it, and trying new things, and just trying to stay out or trying to get out there and staying out in the outdoors as much as possible, and and make the most out of it. So again, I guess the big message for this episode is, yes, it has been an unusual winter, but there are still plenty of things to do in the outdoors. Again, I highly encourage you to try something new, learn a new, pick up a new skill, increase your woodsmanship. So I guess with all that, we'll wrap this one up. So again, as always, get out there, be safe, and have fun.